Okay, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Ike MMA show or the Ike MMA podcast, whichever one you prefer. I'm joined the studio this evening with a special guest, Dean Garnett. Dean, how are you?
I'm good, man. What's happening?
Not, not bad. I've been, for me, this interview is almost long overdue, because you're someone who I've been following for a while. You know your backstory and not just MMA, because you're so, as in, you're very intelligent and very articulate. I've heard the conversations you've had with people, the podcasts and the interviews you had on YouTube, and you're the sort of person that, well, you're not what people would expect from a combat sports athlete, especially in mixed martial arts, if you know what I mean. Um,
Yeah.
you do have some really, as in, informed opinions about what's been going on, especially during 2020 with the lockdown and with COVID.
Yeah.
Um, so look, I know that I could read this online or wherever, whichever source is out there, newspapers or on the internet, but I always ask every combat sports athlete or affiliate, a bit about their backstory, just where they come from, who they are as a person.
Yeah. Yeah. So obviously I'm from Liverpool, grew up in Spee, rough council estate, no sob story, like had everything I needed provided for me. So I had a good upbringing, but just grew up on a rough council estate and about 19 I remember thinking I was a bit of a tough guy, so I wanted to get into MMA. I'd been watching it since I was about 12. I remember watching Chuck Liddell, Randy Couture on Bravo was one of the first fights I ever watched. I was just always intrigued. So I finally got into it at like 19, and I've had a very interesting journey, and I've got no regrets about anything in the sport. But I've gone to uni, got a degree, opened up my own academy. Fought on some decent shows, managed to travel the world fighting. So I'm just someone who's pursuing a passion as a career rather than just getting up every day and going to work for the man. But I just think he talked about obviously all the things I spoke about pre-2020 as well. I just think that's the fighter in me, you know what I mean? I've had a bit of time away from fighting from 2018, but that was due to a hiatus from ACB. Then I got my jaw broke end of 2019. Then we had the pandemic, which is obviously something I was anticipating. And that sort of distracted me a lot. So it's nice to finally be back where I belong after be competing.
So from that, how did you get involved in combat sports, as particularly mixed martial arts?
I actually boxed as an amateur when I was young. Started boxing about 8. I've done that till I was about 12 with a few fights. And I kind of just fell out of love with it. I was still watching MMA then, but it wasn't until I was 19. I just went on Google and, banged it in, and a list of gyms come up, and I remember being like shocked thinking, wow, there's like 5 or 6 places I can train here in Liverpool. Ended up going to Next Generation, spent like 8 years there. And then, moved on and opened up my own academy. So I was there, just took the leap of faith. I remember thinking on my first day, I'm definitely going to stick with this and do it. And then on my second day, I remember thinking I'm going to be a coach as well. This is something I could happily get out of bed for every morning to go to work with a smile on my face. So yeah, I'm very happy about, pursuing MMA as a full-time career.
I In one of your interviews, I do remember you mentioning that the sort of home you came from. I think your dad was a very like the British sort of stiff upper lip, as in, was basically didn't take any nonsense, was
Yeah,
quite iron fisted and all.
yeah, definitely.
Did that kind of, let me say, inform and influence your decision to go down the combat sporting route?
I, I wouldn't. I would say so in some ways. I did take a few beatings when I was a kid, like, and I also had a few bullies before I was about 10. And it was kind of when I went to secondary school, I ended up just standing up to a couple of them one day and getting the better of them, and just thought, you know what, I've got a bit of fire in me, and I've never backed down from a fight since.
Mm.
So yeah, it definitely did propel me. Other people having the ability to inflict violence on me and me feeling helpless. So being able to fight was always something that I knew I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And it was a skill I wanted to accomplish.
Mm. Yeah. Back then, where you are now, everything you now have achieved and everything under your belt, is it something that you visualized that this is what I want to achieve, this is what I want, I'm gonna make it happen, I'm gonna do whatever it takes to make this happen.
100%. So there was lots of stuff like that, to be honest. Obviously having my own academy, I visualized that, and we run a post 16 beta throughout university. That was something I learned about there, and started to plan and develop. I visualized that, and we've done that. You know, I visualized going on a journey with lots of the amateurs that I was training when I was fighting.
Mm,
Some of them like Mohammed Mokaev, Liam McCracken, they're on UFC and Bellator in the next 4 and 7 weeks. So, all this stuff I imagined to come. I imagined I'd be fighting the UFC, to be honest, through prime of my career. That's probably one of the only things that hasn't materialised. But again, I did have offers off the UFC when I was 9-0, and I just signed for ACB, but unfortunately it came 3 days after I signed that contract, and then I had a get out clause. I lost to Magomedov, but had a really good start to the fight, just got clipped and never recovered, got choked. And then the second fight I lost Anthony Leone, I was in Australia. Again, if you watch the first 2 rounds of that fight, it told me. And then I started gas because of the big weight cut to bantamweight, and I had a UFC get out clause. And speaking to Sean Shelby at the time, they said, look, just beat Leone. We watched the Magomedov fight. You were dominating that fight till you got clipped. So beat Leone, and your original offer was ready to go, ready to sign. Um, Obviously, I lost to Leone. I bounced back with a win against Dominic Wooden, um, which was a decent win at the time. He's obviously, he's a good prospect, and he's gone on to do pretty well. Um, and then I broke my jaw the following year. So, I've achieved most of what I want to do,
mm,
but it's not so much fighting in the UFC now that when I was much younger, I had this fantasy, and it was one of the things that I thought defined me getting to the UFC. Having the offers almost feels the same anyway, and even being there as a coach definitely is a satisfying experience. But I'm still only 34. I jumped straight back into camp for a fight,
mm,
last week with 8 weeks to prepare, and no disrespect to Miguel Harrow, he was probably the easiest fight I've had for a while, but you can't complain with a little layoff. And
mhm,
for me, there was a bit of pressure to dispatch him quite easily and convincingly. And I'll be honest, I actually remember, even when I threw those shots that hurt him, I wanted him to slow down and give me more time to enjoy being back in the cage. I wanted to take
mm,
my time. I wasn't really going out there thinking I'm going to put him away early, but he was a little bit aggressive, and he drove himself onto my shots in the end. So yeah, still a lot to do, mate. The night's still young.
mhm. I have to say that fight at Hexagon MMA back in Paris, 13 seconds, round one, knockout. That's crazy, Dean.
Yeah,
That's
no,
just
it was a
crazy.
nice victory, a nice feeling.
Mm. Um, but getting to combat sports, I mean, and this is something I've kind of asked every person I've interviewed, but again, I like to get the answer from the person themselves. Um, was there any concerns with things like your health? Because, any sort of long-term injuries or sort of long-term effects could have on you.
No, not really, mate, because there's like anything, you can do it safely, can't you? So for me, we don't spar with much head contact.
Okay.
I don't need to go to the gym and prove anything to anybody. I know once the cage door shuts, I'm ready to fight. Do you know what I mean? That's just, I can just flip that switch in any moment. So not really, mate. I think as long as I think if anything, the things that have put the most miles on my clock would be the weight cuts that I've done. I've done really stupid weight cuts, and with having a lot of stuff to manage, owning a gym and being a coach and all the other things I'm involved with, I think sometimes I was losing my discipline around me nutrition. Everything else was always tight. I have no issue motivating myself to train, completing all my sessions. But what I do struggle with is not having a chocolate bar sometimes, or not eating. I just spent 9 weeks in a calorie deficit, but I've done a good job. So yeah, I think there's different ways you can put miles on your clock in MMA, and the worst way to do it is in the gym because you're not getting paid to spar. It's not going on your share dog. So I just think, you should be training with the right training partners, and the intensity can be there. The heart rate monitor can be hitting those red zones. That's hard sparring. It's not knocking lumps out your training partners and everything else. I think the legs and body are fair game in the gym, but I think in terms of CTE and protecting your brain, I
Hmm.
think it's
Yeah.
it's it's a it's a no-brainer. You know what I mean? It's why there's a couple of lads in the gym who are notorious for it, and ours. Sam Lynch is one I'm gonna name. He's probably the worst for it, but it's not gonna long term. It's not gonna benefit them. I've had, I think, 15 or 16 pro fights, and if you were to watch them all, I've been at maybe 5, 6 times a good shots. So I'm lucky in that sense. I might be 34, but I haven't been in a load of wars, and I think 4 or 5 good years now in the position I'm in where I've got a lot of support around me with the gym. I've got a full-time career now, but I can actually put 95% into a fight camp when I need to, and my
Hmm.
business still runs, and the guys and girls in the gym still are getting the needs met because we've got such a big team of coaches with me. My business partner and head coach Phil Turner, I've got Aaron Robinson, Liam McCracken, Marlon Jones do a lot, and Aspire. So there's a big team there that sort of supports people from the top right down to the little ninjas and the juniors who start as young as 3. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So yeah, practice it safe, man. That's the only way to do it. I've got a mantra that I love, and it's not train hard, fight easy. It's train smart, fight hard.
Yes.
At the end of the
Yes.
day,
Yeah.
man, you're turning up to fight hard. You're not turning up to fight easy, unless you're fighting bums. You know what I mean? So you should be training smart and turning up ready to perform at peak levels against top opposition, ideally. Oh, there you go.
With regards to weight cuts, um, I've seen that the fighters or the athletes who make weight fine, and they meet the weight that's required for them to compete in that particular fight and event. But I've seen some really severe cases, sometimes up on the scale, and they will literally just faint there. Other cases I've heard, and I won't forget some that I heard that some people lost so much weight, they've heard their brains literally vibrating their skulls because they've lost so many weight and the calories have just been too low.
Yeah. There's definitely some deaths that have been attributed to weight cutting by a coroner. So it has happened multiple times. So it's definitely the most dangerous aspect of fighting currently. And I'm surprised it's not regulated better. Some of the medicals we have to do to make sure we're fit to fight, and then to allow us to do that's just crazy. And I'm guilty of doing it myself. And now I've came back to fighting. I'm definitely thinking more towards featherweight, certainly, if I want to stay active, because I don't need to be cutting 15 pound overnight. Um, it's extreme, and I don't think it does anything for your health or your performance.
Mm.
But unfortunately, it can benefit you if done well. But there's pros and cons, and it's a shame that there's £10 between weight divisions at the lower weights. If there was a super bantamweight class, 63.5, 64 with your allowance. My last fight was at a catch weight 64, weighed in 63.6. That'd be a perfect weight for me. I'm lean and I'm cutting 5% water. But featherweight, I'm a bit small. I could probably make it cutting no water. You know what I mean?
Mm.
So more weight divisions wouldn't go amiss at this point.
Of course, yeah, no, definitely. People have been talking about that even in the UFC. Let me say more weight division, so there's that flexibility. You don't have to restrict yourself to certain calories and weights in order to compete in the fight. Um, you are fighting out of next generation MMA Liverpool? No.
No, that's our Saturday. That's our fight out of my old
Okay.
club, Aspire Combat Sports Academy.
Ah, okay, because I was think that's the same as Shamrock BJJ.
Yeah, no, I haven't trained there for like 8 years,
Ah.
9 years,
But
something like
look,
that.
I've been following your content for a while, listening to it and just got the conversations that you've been having. But what I really that really annoys me is that there isn't a lot more news about you. I mean, the way you fought just the other day, that's spectacular. It was really good. And also you're very intelligent, very knowledgeable about politics, but other stuff outside what you do and what outside your craft.
People take that as a compliment.
No,
But
I
yeah, I
mean,
think that
no, go ahead. Sorry to
um,
interrupt you.
I was gonna say I think I've got to beat better opposition if I go El Haro to be really making noise. But I'll do that in the next fight or two. Hopefully we get some big opposition next.
Um, got a list of questions here to ask you. Do, do, do. UFC 287. I just want to get
Yeah.
your opinion on that. Adesanya versus Pereira. Hopefully I pronounced his surname correctly. Adesanya versus Pereira. Who do you think will win?
Is this being rebooked, as it? This second fight?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Do you know what? I said I thought Pereira might knock him out in the first fight, and I wouldn't be surprised if he does it again. But he's quite possibly the most technical guy on the feet, so maybe it's their time lucky for him. But you know what? That's a fight I wouldn't bet on.
You serious?
Yeah, I wouldn't bet on that at the minute. I'm literally split 50-50.
Hmm.
50-50.
Because if for me, I mean, I'm not a fighter. I've never been in an octagon in front of a crowd of people and cameras, hoping, aiming and fighting to win. So I don't know what that feels like. But I would have thought that, and someone said this to me, that because this guy's beaten him for the third time, for Adesanya, Pereira will be forever in his head until he fights him again and wins the fight. So I was assuming that Adesanya is going to work and train and do whatever it takes like mad until he beats this guy.
Yeah. Listen, I wouldn't be surprised though if Pereira beats him and then moves up to light heavyweight and beats Jamal Hill. That guy's a ridiculous beast.
Mm,
So don't be
yeah.
surprised if he's a two-weight champ.
Um, this will be. I hope it doesn't come across as an awkward question because you're still very young and you still got a lot of fight, a lot of life and years ahead of you. But when you have decided to hang up your gloves and probably retire from combat sports, what is the one thing that you want to be remembered for?
Do you know what? Just that I was someone like integrity and someone who was legit at what he did. That's about it really. That'll do me. Just people, you just want to be recognised for the work you've put in. So yeah, not more than that. Just be known as someone who had integrity about what he did and how he conducted himself, and what motivates me to turn up to the gym. It's all about developing people and being part of the community and all that. That's why I do what I do. So if I can have an impact on a group of people that's positive, then fine.
And look, any news on your next fight, your next opponent?
So I was pushing Hexagon to fight 5 weeks this Saturday, but unfortunately I'm not going to make that card. I think maybe it's too short notice to get a legitimate opponent to fight 5 rounds. I wouldn't take a 5 rounder unless I had 12 weeks or something. But obviously, I was rolling straight off one fight onto the next. I come home from Paris on the Monday night and I'm back to 2 sessions a day Tuesday last week, taking over with everything. So I'm just staying ready. I'm non-exclusive with Hexagon, so there are other shows, other European shows that I'm currently talking to. Be nice to get more fights in this year, maybe four fights. So maybe March, April, I'm gonna get something somewhere, get me belt on Hexagon in June, and then one or two more to finish the year.
No, no, good, good. I like that. Um,
Stay busy now.
yes, 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 definitely. Hopefully I'm not repeating myself, but is it that you would like to um fight one day in one of the big major mainstream promoters, such as, okay, the obvious one, the UFC, Bellator, One Championship, PFL, is also one of your goals?
I mean, it always was when I was fighting, but I think I almost retired. In fact, I practically did retire. I was literally saying 6 months ago, I'm gonna just knock the fight on the game on the head myself and focus on the gym. But Gustavo Firmino, my manager, set me a nice contract with Hexagon, and it motivated me to get back in, and I'm glad I did. And now I'm not really putting too big. I just don't want to put like expectations on anything. I want to just enjoy it. So I'm fighting a featherweight, and I just want to enjoy competing. It's something that I got into for the love of it. So not that worried. But it would be nice to fight for the UFC or a PFL tournament, something like that. But if it doesn't happen, I'm not too worried. I'm happy either way.
I would like to see that. I
Yeah,
would
no,
like to,
listen,
yeah.
I think I'm capable
Mm,
of doing that. Certainly, if I get another fight or two in. Listen, I'm going to be at UFC London, ready to make weight, fit, with all my medicals and a recent victory on my record. So they've got no excuses. They've offered me fights before. If any featherweight or bantamweight fights ever pull out, I'll literally dive in on the day. So
nice.
I'm going to be
I look
literally
forward
there
to that.
waiting to jump on a fight.
Last but not least, Dean, is there any affiliate sponsors or family you'd like to give a shout out to?
Yeah, so Pride or Die, Feel Supreme sponsored me for my last fight, and then obviously all the guys at the gym, Phil Turner, Adam Robinson, Ed Bavloff. He's an American guy based in Oslo. He's with us for the next 2 years. Glyn from Alliance Muay Thai, Glenn Blackburn, been getting some working with him. Danny Fletcher and Femi, me S&C coaches, Charlie, me nutritionist. Adding a boxing coach to the team next week, Joe Tonks. Just, everyone who's part of the professional team. I'm just privileged to work with you all. So, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to a busy year, not just with my fights, but with the lads as well. I said I'm in Dublin this month, London the month after, and Marlon Jones has got a big fight. Callum Mullen's got a big fight on FCC. Two title fights there. So we're starting to turn over some unbelievably bright
Mhm.
amateurs to the pro ranks as well. So exciting times, mate. It's a good time to be Dean Garnett, and this is the lifestyle I always dreamed of, and I'm living the dream every day.
Awesome. Awesome. I love that.
So
Guys, Dean, thank you so much for coming on. Guys, if you
thank you.
if you enjoyed the episode, please don't forget to hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe. You can also catch the episode on iTunes, Spotify, and on Google Podcasts. And once again, Dean, thank you so much for coming on. And definitely, please, we have to do this again and probably an earlier time because there's a lot of things I want to ask you. But from what I've heard from your other interviews, MMA is just making up like a small portion of the stuff that you know about.
Yeah.
Why don't people know more of you? As in, why don't people know who more people know who you are, especially here in the UK, because this is your home base. So, um, you know what I mean?
Well, I think to be honest, mate, certainly in Liverpool, I'm probably more well known for all the stuff around,
Mm,
what's going on in the world than I am MMA. So, certainly locally, I am, but it's one of the things, mate. There's people like me speaking out all over the country
sure.
who share lots of great information, but it's just it's a tough one, man. And to be honest, I've got my allotments. I'm always learning about one day getting off grid and having a homestead. And I'm gonna do that. That's one of my goals, and I'm gonna achieve it. And I'm gonna be self-sufficient, and I'm not gonna be part of this central bank digital currency
Mm.
15-minute city crap that's coming. And we'll finish it on that, bro.
All right, Dean. Thank you so much for coming
All
on,
right,
and
mate.
definitely have to do this again. Thank you again.
Yeah, man. Definitely. Nice one.
Take care.
See you later, brother. Bye.